So by now, pretty much everybody is familiar with the craze going on with the Jersey drones, and really outside of Jersey, there's all sorts of mysterious sightings of UAPs. Some are calling drones, but we really ultimately don't know what they are. We've seen the government and its various forms, whether it's the FBI or whether it's the Department of Defense, the Pentagon. I mean, we've seen them make statements here and there. We've even seen Trump weigh in on the drones, but we've conspicuously noted how silent Biden has been. However, he was just asked about the drones by a reporter, and he has now broken his silence. Let's go ahead and take a look at what he says about the drones and see if we can get some kind of insight from it. And then after that, I have a ton of updates. Really, really interesting stuff on the drones. So there's plenty of good stuff in store on today's show. Be sure to hit that like button and especially the subscribe button if you appreciate the content here. Let's go ahead and watch what Biden says. I might have to play it a few times because it's a little hard to understand him, but let's see if we can make some sense out of it. All right, let's dive in.
Nothing nefarious, apparently, but they're checking it all out. I think it's just one. There's a lot of drones authorized up there. I think one started and they all got it. Everybody wanted to get in the deal.
As you can see, it's a little hard to understand. Let's hear it one more time, and I'm going to give an approximate transcription here.
Nothing nefarious, apparently, but they're checking it all out. I think it's just one. There's a lot of drones authorized up there. I think one started and they all got it. Everybody wanted to get in the deal.
One more time.
Nothing nefarious, apparently, but they're checking it all out. I think it's just one. There's a lot of drones authorized up there. I think one started and they all got it. Everybody wanted to get in the deal.
Okay, so it sounds like he's saying nothing nefarious apparently. There's a lot of drones authorized up there. I think one started and they all got, everybody wanted to get in the deal. Okay, so you know what? He might have just let something slip. And I have to say, okay, take it with a grain of salt because obviously he's not all the way there, right? Clearly, he is not all the way there. So you got to take everything he says with a grain of salt. But he says nothing nefarious, apparently. Why would you say apparently if you are the president of the United States? You should be entirely informed on what's going on. Why apparently? Apparently would suggest that this is something outside of the government, that it's not actually something that Biden is over. So maybe it's a foreign enemy or it's something else. Nothing nefarious, apparently. There's a lot of drones authorized up there. So that would indicate, okay, well, there's a bunch of drones up there right now that are authorized by the government because they're trying to investigate what's going on in the sky. So there's some kind of thing going on that he doesn't really know what it is, but apparently it's not nefarious. And so drones are authorized to go and check out the situation. He says, I think one started and they all got, everybody wanted to get in the deal. He says, I think one started. What does he mean by that? Does he mean that what happened was there was some kind of UAP drone, whatever you want to call it, that started? And because of that, the government is now trying to get involved in sending drones up there to figure out what's going on, or people are now starting to send up drones. Hobbyists are starting to do that. I don't know, but what it sounds like he's saying is he doesn't know what it is. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that the government, doesn't know what's going on. It could just be that he's not very well informed because clearly he's not all the way there. I'm not sure how up to date he is on any of these situations given his cognitive inabilities. So, my take, however, is that just first blush, trying to make some sense of it, if we can trust anything that he has to say and if he's actually functioning there when he made this statement. It sounds to me like he is under the impression that this isn't really ours. But hey, it's not nefarious, so nothing to worry about. And so we've got a bunch of drones up there now trying to figure out what the situation is. That's the best that I can get from it. Let's hear it one more time. Y'all tell me if I may be missing something.
Over New Jersey. What's behind all of that? Nothing nefarious apparently, but they're checking it all out. I think it's just one. There's a lot of drones authorized up there. I think one started and they all got it. Everybody wanted to get in the deal.
Wow. And to think this is the guy who is currently leading our country. January 20th can't get here soon enough. This is scary. This is the guy between us and Putin. This is the guy between us and China. This is the guy between us and foreign adversaries. Really? Yeah, no, this is not good. He says again, nothing nefarious. Apparently, there's a lot of drones authorized up there. I think one gets started and they all got, and then he stopped. Everybody wanted to get in the deal. Thank you so much for that, Biden. Uh, now compare that to Trump's statement 2 days ago about the drones, and you tell me, which one is more fit for the presidency. Well, that was absolutely shameful. But let's move on. So I'm seeing a lot of people reporting about orbs, mysterious orbs that they're seeing. They're claiming that there are these lights that they're seeing in the sky that are not um, drones, that are not airplanes. They just describe them as orbs. In some cases, I think what they're doing is they're zooming in on a planet. I'll show you one example of that here in a moment. In this case, though, this is a little weird and a little different. Let's actually watch this one. Sometimes videos like this can be faked, so you never know for sure if it's real. I haven't seen anybody say that these are fake, though. So take it with a grain of salt, though. That one might be an airplane. I don't know. That one's a little harder to really tell what exactly it is. That could be anything. Those could be aircraft. Um, I don't know about this one. The first one that they showed was a little bit more intriguing. Let me show you that one again. The first one here, those, yeah, those don't look like aircraft, or airplanes. Those look like video games. Certainly those aren't drones. I don't know. Jury's out on that one for me. This next one, though, been floating around. I think that this is a planet. Some people are saying that the orb speaks to her whenever she says Jesus loves me. Now uh, very, very skeptical of claims like that. Whenever I see stuff like this, I already say, yeah, not so sure. But watch this, okay? Here's why I think she's not actually seeing an orb or a drone or some UAP. It's just a planet. Watch.
If I can do this today. Where am I? In between those two trees.
All right, it's not moving. Okay, now look how much she had to zoom in. And it suspiciously looks like a planet or a star whenever you zoom in on those on some kind of phone or camera. So, yeah, this to me seems like a planet or star. Doesn't appear to be a drone or a mysterious orb, but let's watch it for good measure anyway. I'm skeptical about this one.
See if I can zoom in more. I know I can, but my fingers don't work. Sorry, guys. Sorry, guys. There we go. Let's see if we can zoom in. That's kind of cool. Look at that. Can you talk to me? Can you hear me? Jesus loves me. Oh, you know Jesus. You know Jesus. Jesus is awesome, isn't he?
Why is she talking like she's speaking to a child or something?
Yes, he is. God is good. God is good. God is good.
Okay. Yeah. So I don't think that that's, one of these mysterious orbs or drones or something else. I think that this is her zooming in on a planet or a star. And as far as moving of colors, whenever she said certain things like Jesus and God, I think that's just a coincidence. Okay. So we're getting some interesting claims, though. Here is the House Foreign Affairs Committee Chair McCall, who claims that mystery drones in New Jersey are Chinese spy drones. So we've heard before Iran. Now we're hearing China. He says, I believe they're spy drones. The PRC, Communist China, excels at this. We know they've purchased land near military bases. Let's see what he has to say.
Okay. I know you were just talking about Afghanistan, but on the drone sightings, I did ask you, do you have any idea what line of questioning you all are going with? The public and lawmakers, obviously, we all have a lot of questions about what those are.
Yeah, we want answers. The response that I'm getting is that we don't know whose drones these are. I was with the NASA administrator, Bill Nelson. He said that these drones have been reported over military sites, military bases. I would not think those are friendly. I would think those are adversarial. In fact, NASA seems to be picking up more than our military is on with respect to the drones. So I think Congress is gonna pursue this. I know the House Intelligence Committee is having a hearing on this. We need to identify who is behind these drones. My judgment, based on my experience, is that those that are over our military sites are adversarial and most likely are coming from the People's Republic of China.
Do you think you'll be satisfied with what you hear today?
Probably not. I think they're going to say they don't know. And that's a concern in and of itself, that if we have drones flying around military bases and we can't identify where they came from or who's responsible for them. I know there are a lot of commercial drones out there, and Secretary Mayorkas has talked about this. That's fine. But the ones flying over our military bases, by definition, I would say are adversarial. We need to know who is behind that because I believe they're spying.
Okay, so what we're seeing from him is speculation. He doesn't really have any evidence, at least not that he's presented here, to back up that claim. And so any talk about this being China, just know that is mere speculation, just based on what's been presented so far. No actual evidence was provided. We're also seeing this now being reasserted elsewhere. New York Post: spy drones from China are likely cause of unexplained aircraft wreaking havoc over U.S. House Foreign Affairs chair says in bombshell claim. Take it with a grain of salt. We don't know for sure because he didn't really provide any evidence. Sounds like he was just speculating. So, yeah, I don't know about that one. Now, this is wild because we're seeing this all over the country and really even outside of the country. We're going to look at an example overseas here in a moment where they're seeing these drones, these mysterious UAPs. They're calling them drones. Here's a confirmed drone sighting in Utah. So New York, New Jersey, we got we had Los Angeles, Ohio, Utah. The list goes on and on. Watch this one.
Mark, Heidi, both Hill Air Force Base and Camp Williams here tell me that they are investigating sightings. Right now, we are right near the Salt Lake International Airport. It is a restricted area for drones, along with those bases. Today, though, I spoke with two different pilots, both who find the reports of these sightings especially concerning.
I go out into the mountains, into the canyons.
Utah drone enthusiast Scott Taylor says he loves to fly and capture the places people normally can't see.
I like this one here. This is a New Year's Eve at the Gateway.
Like many across the nation, Taylor's been watching for updates on the unidentified East Coast sightings. As a drone hobbyist, enthusiast, I'm sure you're following this closely.
I'm worried about what it's going to do to the future of drones and what they're going to, are they going to make it impossible for me to fly or for me to get other drones?
Here in Utah, Camp Williams confirmed it's investigating smaller drone sightings from the last several months, but nothing that's recent. Late this afternoon, Hill Air Force Base confirmed that unmanned aerial systems were spotted in the vicinity of the base. These sightings, they said, have not impacted operations, and all measures are being taken to protect personnel, assets, and infrastructure. Are people supposed to know if they should be concerned?
Well, anytime they're flying a drone around a military base or an airfield or a sporting event, they should be concerned.
Colonel William Dunn is an accomplished U.S. Marine attack helicopter pilot, having flown hundreds of combat missions across the globe, experiences he wrote about and published. Dunn says the lack of transparency regarding the East Coast sightings is concerning.
This is the thing that bothers me the most. If we are openly telling everybody we don't know why these drones are flying around and we can't figure it out, which I don't believe that to be the case, but if we're telling everybody that and our adversaries see that, then that's going to embolden them to use a similar tactic.
According to Dunn, drones large and small can pose serious security and safety threats. So your stance is more information needs to be released?
I would say so. Even if it's not a good news story, let the American public know, because we see them. It's not like you can keep them hidden. People are seeing them, people are reporting them. And if they're trying to they're going to make hysteria large if they don't explain why.
Now, to be clear, both Hill Air Force Base and Camp Williams are investigating those sightings, but they say there is no threat to their facilities. However, they continue to urge people to report any concerning activity.
All right, so as you can see, not only spotted in Utah, but in the vicinity of Hill Air Force Base, which is yet another instance where we're seeing them near or at military facilities. This is concerning. It really does now paint the picture that this might be a foreign adversary trying to see how we respond, and basically testing our defense, trying to see how well our system is put together. And if we're not responding sufficiently, it looks like this is going to continue to occur with other military facilities. So this is really, really concerning. It does give the appearance of a foreign adversary trying to test us in our military defense. So here is another one. Confirmed, the UAP drone objects are coming from the ocean and coming to land. And this has been addressed for about a week and a half now. There's speculation it's coming from the water. And look, there has to be somewhere where they're coming from, right? So the question is, where exactly is that? There have been people who work for the Coast Guard and others who have witnessed them coming directly out of the ocean. And here's some more confirmation of that.
You just heard from John Kirby there over at the White House. What say you?
Well, I think it's very misleading at best. If he knows something, he should say it. To say that sightings that people in the Coast Guard, in the United States Navy, and Naval Air Station, Weapons Station Earl, which is in my district, they've seen drones at and right in close proximity to that munitions depot. People at Picatinny in like manner. Many law enforcement people have seen it. They've seen it in a way that suggests formations that are coming off the ocean into the land. And even with the Coast Guard, I spoke to one of the commanders who said one of our 47-foot rescue boats, right on its stern, were between 12 and 30 drones following close proximity to that. I mean, they had no idea who they were.
What do they think that was?
Yeah. Oh, they think it's drones. They don't know.
Oh,
I
like
asked
what?
them about the rules of engagement. If they get too close, what do? You know how to interdict people who are carrying weapons as well as drugs. What do you do if there's a drone that's right on your tail like that? So they said they're seeking advice. I haven't heard back what that advice yet is. So I think this idea is see no evil, hear no evil. It is reminiscent of what we saw prior to 9/11, what we've seen many times with the Department of State. I wrote a law called the Embassy Security Act back in the year 2000. It is the law of the land. We had two of our embassies bombed by Al Qaeda. One was in Dar es Salaam in Tanzania. The other one was in Kenya, in Nairobi. There were warnings that went unheeded. There were requests for additional munitions and help and visual aids. They got none of it. So I wrote a law that did setbacks and did all kinds of other things, and it's the law of the land. I'll never forget when Admiral Crow, who was the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff previously, testified at my hearings. He was in disbelief about how there was a culture of denial. Now, if these things are nothing but benign influences, they better speak to us now.
Congressman, can you still hear me? I saw you were messing there with your earpiece.
Yeah, it did fall out a minute ago. I'm sorry.
No worries.
I didn't hear you.
I just heard you start talking though about 9/11. You're ready to go there?
No. Don't get me wrong.
Okay.
We have to be very careful that we look at signs. There were all kinds of signs prior to 9/11. My brother was an airline pilot. He kept saying, why are those doors to the cockpits so weak that a person who is not even a black belt with Taekwondo could take one out and get to the pilots?
Okay.
And and I raised that issue over and over again, and nothing was ever done until afterwards, when obviously they had access to our pilots.
A couple more questions here. Who told you in the Coast Guard that story that you were talking about?
I have his name.
What's the position?
I have his name. He's the commanding officer. Well, he's the commanding officer from the Barnegat Coast Guard, and he was with me and the sheriff when we were on the beach, and I have his card right in my pocket, and we talked about it. He's the one who told me. I hadn't heard about it before. That was about a week ago.
So,
and I talked to the commanding officer at Earl, Blake. The commanding officer told me that his guys looked up and saw and saw a drone right near the rail line that takes our munitions to the pier, which are then unloaded onto ships.
So
That's-
I hear
who
what
is
you're.
it?
Yeah. So I hear what you're. So here's what the White House says, and this is kind of where I'm stuck, because they said today that it's lawful commercial drones, hobbyist drones, man aircraft, even stars. Okay, and that they have this information after they quote unquote surged resources. So do you believe that Doug from Hoboken or Susie from Morristown in your state, right? I see you laughing because you know where I'm going. Doug from Hoboken, Susie from Morristown flies a drone up in the air, whether it's a lawful commercial drone, a hobbyist drone, and the United States government, with its $800 billion Pentagon budget, needed to quote unquote surge resources to figure that out?
Why did we know it right off the bat? By day one, we should have been saying, this is what it is, and responsible parties should have been made aware of it, including our governor, who's asked for more information, which he has not gotten. Maybe he's getting it now. I've talked to the head of the state police, who's an excellent leader, and he, you know, I have a bill I'm introducing that will at least vest authority into the state polices of all of our states to have the capability to discern what these drones are and others that might follow, and also if you have to bring them down. Remember, they're unmanned drones. So if you do it in a place where there's no population, like over the water,
Right.
you can ascertain what it is, who they are. And again, as you know, Blake, the warfare has radically changed. Where drone warfare, look at Ukraine, look at the Middle East. It has become the go-to method of delivering packages that include ordnance.
Thank you for watching. And
All right. So again, we're seeing just more confirmation that these, again, they're calling them drones, but we don't know for sure what exactly they are. These UAPs are coming from the ocean. Again, they have to come from somewhere. And so that's kind of been the question. Where are they coming from? Especially if they're, you know, traversing a long period or a long amount of territory and land. They have to have very, very sophisticated instrumentation on board, and they have to be brought to those locations. So yeah, there's a whole lot of questions surrounding this, and I know there's a whole bunch of people now just now tuning in and didn't get to see the first part, so we're going to watch what Biden said again before we move on to some new material about the drones and orbs and all that. I see some people in the chat asking about the orbs. Yeah, we covered a few instances of orbs earlier. It's kind of inconclusive in some of the videos, and other videos I do think that they're just zooming in on a star or a planet. But let's first see what Biden has to say, because he finally broke silence on the question. Let's see if we can glean some sort of clarity from him here.
Nothing nefarious apparently, but they're checking it all out. I think it's just one. There's a lot of drones authorized up there. I think one started and they all got it. Everybody wanted to get in the deal. All those drones over New Jersey. What's behind all of that? Nothing nefarious apparently, but they're checking it all out. I think it's just one. There's a lot of drones authorized up there. I think one started and they all got it. Everybody wanted to get in the deal. All those drones over New Jersey. What's behind all of that? Nothing nefarious apparently, but they're checking it all out. I think it's just one. There's a lot of drones authorized up there. I think one started and they all got it. Everybody wanted to get in the deal.
All right, so I had to play it a few times. Again, if you didn't catch it, it sounds like he said, nothing nefarious apparently. There's a lot of drones authorized up there. I think one started and they all got, everybody wanted to get in the deal. Thank you so much for that, Mr. President of the United States. You really helped answer so many questions and put us at ease. You know, I think all of our concerns now are gone. He kind of dispelled all of those concerns that we had about this maybe being maybe being a foreign entity or something like that, I feel so much better. This is an absolute joke. But as I mentioned earlier at the beginning of the show, maybe he let something slip there because he said nothing nefarious, apparently, which kind of gives the impression that he's not exactly sure what it is. And if he's not sure, maybe that means it's not from the United States. And he says, I think one started and everybody wanted to get on the deal. So is he saying that basically something happened, some unknown anomaly presented itself, some UAP showed up, and now he sent a whole bunch of authorized drones to figure out what's going on? Maybe that's what he was trying to communicate. I don't know, but I'm just saying, if you're the president of the United States, people shouldn't be asking what exactly it is that you're intending to communicate. You should be incredibly and sufficiently clear. So yeah, I hope that was helpful to y'all from the president of the United States. Actually, again, Trump's comments were much more insightful than Biden's wildly here. Okay, so let's move on to some more videos here. And for those of y'all just now tuning in, hey, please hit that subscribe button. If you appreciate the content of this channel, I really would appreciate your support. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. Okay, so Pentagon, once again, basically saying, hey, you know what? Nothing to worry about here, nothing nefarious. But the Pentagon is asked about, well, why is it that there was a meeting with Congress yesterday that was closed doors? Why do that if there's nothing to worry about? And if these are just hobbyist drones or lawfully manned aircrafts, why did you have a meeting with Congress that was closed? Watch what the Pentagon says.
Why does it have to be a classified briefing if these are just hobbyist drones? They're not military drones. Why is it a classified briefing on the Capitol Hill?
I'd have to refer you to Congress on that. Again, sharing as much information as we can here. I don't have the briefing in front of me, so I can't tell you specifically, what aspects are classified or not. I can assure you, though, that again, we are sharing as much information as we can based on what we know.
Wow, we are just getting so many answers from the government. They're just being so clear and straightforward with us. Basically, he says, you need to ask Congress about that. We don't know, Wow, so much for building confidence in the government. Check this one out. Mysterious drones missing radioactive material. Now, I covered this yesterday, right before Joe Rogan mentioned it on his show. And before the news began to touch on this question, I went over the government report showing that there's some radioactive material missing and has gone missing December 2nd in Jersey. And it's not incredibly dangerous material, but if handled for a long amount of time, it could kill a person. But I think that hardly warrants the kind of response that we've been seeing with all the drones. And of course, it doesn't account for sightings prior to December 2nd. It also doesn't account for sightings at military bases and so on and so forth. So I pointed out that, I don't think that this radioactive material thesis really sufficiently accounts for what's going on. Are they nuke sniffers? Are they this and that? Yeah, I don't know if this is really doing it. But here's the news speaking about the matter. Let's see what they have to say. I'm going to share my screen once again. All right.
The New York Times, but she says that she has some kind of contact at the Pentagon and that it has something to do with radioactive material in New Jersey. What are you hearing?
So here's what I know. I know that we were told by our state police that we have assets over our critical infrastructure. Now, depending on your point of view, that's either concerning or comforting. I think it's comforting because it's probably us listening and watching. We also know that we have drones that are flying in a grid-like pattern. In my opinion, they're looking for something. What might they be looking for? Well, potentially, we're aware of a threat that came in through Port Newark. Maybe that's radioactive material. There was and there is an alert that's out right now that radioactive material in New Jersey has gone missing on December 2nd. It was a shipment. It arrived at its destination. The container was damaged and was empty. So potentially we're looking for that.
Stop right there, Mayor, because that's very important information. And that came from a credible source.
That came from the U.S. government.
And so it's missing?
Missing.
And they think it's in New Jersey, or it could be anywhere?
It was lost in New Jersey in transit. And again, this is just an example of what I think that we're sniffing for. I think we do have the assets that can go up and fly around and sniff things, which is why we're not seeing the uptick we used to see in Belleville anymore. It's kind of moving, but we're seeing alerts that it's happening now in Pennsylvania.
And that's right about the time that the drone sightings began, right?
Yeah, drone sightings began about 4 weeks ago.
Okay, so when you take a look at this, if this information is indeed credible, why wouldn't the government say, it's us?
That's the crazy part about this. We've gotten very little information. Even yesterday on that call with the White House, literally mayors were told, you guys are seeing things. There's no credibility to this. We have one mayor, like I said, had drones over his house. I mean, we're no longer going to stand for not hearing the truth. I mean, our state government is failing us. They're not getting the answers from the federal government. And even though yesterday they told us that there's nothing to see here, today there's a top secret briefing going on in Congress. Well, what are they being told that we weren't told yesterday?
Real quick, did you know yesterday when you were on that call about this missing radioactive activity or merchandise, or did you know that this morning after the call?
I was made aware of it yesterday morning. I did raise my hand. We weren't allowed to speak. I did raise my hand, was not called on to get that question answered.
So apparently it is concerning. Even the president-elect, who I'm sure gets some kind of briefings on things, he says he's not going to his home in Bedminster, right?
Yeah, I listened to him yesterday. He no doubt gets the same exact briefings that President Biden gets. He says our government knows. He says our president knows. And he also ended with saying, I'm not going to be in New Jersey this weekend.
So what do you want to know? What do you want the government to tell you and the general public?
I want them to be clear with us. I want transparency. I want them to say these are our assets. There's no need to concern about what's flying. The question should no longer be who's flying these drones or who owns them. It should be what they're looking for. Tell us they're ours. Tell us that they're protecting us, and tell us what the threat is.
Okay, we're coming up on the holidays. Is everybody going to be safe?
I hope so.
What do you want people to do if they see them?
That's a great question. So we've been told that pilots out of Newark Airport are getting hit with lasers. You cannot take the law in your own hands. We do not want you shooting at them. It is a federal offense to shoot on an aircraft. Drones are considered aircraft. And please do not try and hit them with lasers. Our pilots are being distracted.
So you think they're American, they're our government, and they're looking for something that went missing that could be very dangerous?
Absolutely.
Yeah, no. Again, I've shown that this is not a sufficient solution to the mystery because, again, we saw these sightings going back to November 18th in Jersey, obviously well before December 2nd. It doesn't account for sightings at military bases. It also doesn't account for the amount of sightings that we've seen because this radioactive material that is missing is actually kind of low level when it comes to a threat. If a person were to handle it, if they handled it for a long period of time, it might end up being lethal for them. Okay, obviously that's a danger, and I'm sure the government would respond, but would it respond in the kind of way that we've seen so far? No, of course not. And it also doesn't answer why so many various governmental departments are giving different answers and nobody's on the same page. And we're getting this explanation just now. Yeah, no, it doesn't add up. I'm not buying it. It's not a sufficient solution to the mystery. All right, continuing here, we're seeing some New Jersey sheriff drone pilots trying to determine what is going on. Let's see what this drone pilot has to say, if he has maybe some answers.
County Sheriff Sergeant Kevin Fennessy is one of about a dozen drone officers responding to calls and now tracking flights from inside this major crimes command center, now turned into a drone war room.
It's wild, the amount of air traffic over New Jersey, and especially over Ocean County.
The sergeant says, sure, many of the calls the department gets are actually airplanes, helicopters, medevacs, planets, even stars. But they have seen things they just cannot explain. A sheriff's lookout drone tethered to the ground captured this video.
We had something coming at us, and as it's coming at us, it stops, it does like a 180 in the air and then drives away, and then comes back and does like a giant U around us. So that's not normal for aircraft.
So this is really happening?
We think so. It's definitely something that whatever we're seeing, we can't figure out what it is.
The federal government reiterated Tuesday that the vast majority of purported drone sightings are, in fact, airplanes or drones flying legally with no threat to public safety. But don't say that to the folks on the
All right. So, in other words, they can't figure it out. They're not sure themselves. So, again, the response that we've been getting from the government just isn't adding up because even sheriff office drone pilots are confused as to what these UAPs are. So, we're starting to see discussion in the news about these as UAPs rather than drones. And so, check this one out. Let's see what we have here. This is from CNN. Trump claims the government knows what is happening with drones, and then they're going to comment on low visibility for these UAPs. Let's see what they have to say.
You're on the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence. What are you learning from federal officials? Do people know what these are? And obviously, I'm not referring to airplanes when I say these.
Correct. So we've had a number of these drone incursions over military bases, over highly confidential, secretive sites, over areas like arsenals, over nuclear sites over the last several years. And we recently had a 2-week drone incursion over Langley. We just had one a week and a half ago over Wright-Patterson. These are important military bases, and we need to have better authorities to be able to take these drones down. I don't think we do know whose they are or even what technology they're using. It's a huge concern for me personally, for members of the Intelligence Committee and members of the Armed Services Committee. I created an office with Senator Rounds and other senators, Senator Rubio, to find these unidentified aerial phenomenon, whether it's drones, whether it's spy balloons, whether it's any other kind of aircraft, and assess what are they, whose are they, what technology is being used. And that work has been reviewing hundreds of sightings over the last several years, and they figure out about half of them. Half of them they can figure out are aircraft or helicopters or drones or balloons, but there's half that they don't have enough data, they don't have enough information, or it just isn't something they can figure out. So it is a concern. We should be treating it like a national security issue, especially when it's over critical infrastructure like bases or nuclear sites.
Do you think the Biden administration is doing enough?
I want to do much more. I'm very concerned that the FAA and the DOJ and Homeland Security aren't doing enough to assess whose drones these are and whether they are adversarial in any way. I think when they say something like, well, we have no evidence that they're foreign operated or adversarial or problematic, they don't have any evidence that it's not.
Right.
So I understand they want people to not be afraid, but they should be as concerned as I am because of these incursions over our bases and sensitive military sites. For 2 weeks, Langley had drone incursions, and they was the type of technology that our radar didn't detect them arriving. So it is problematic. It needs resources.
All right, so you get the point from that one. There's a lot more to cover here, a lot more ground. This is Lue Elizondo, who is former intelligence officer, worked at the Pentagon. I actually showed a video of him from a few days ago. Actually, I showed it a few days ago, but the video was filmed maybe about a month ago at a congressional hearing, and he's openly saying that the government has UFOs, UFO technology, reverse engineering programs, crash retrieval programs. He's saying all of this, and this is a former intelligence officer testifying before Congress. Well, he's going to offer some thoughts as to what's going on with the drones. So this is incredibly fascinating. I'm trying to get him on the show, by the way. So if somebody knows his contact information and you could put me in touch with him, let's make it happen. I want to get him on the show. I want to do an interview. Email me reasonandtheology@gmail.com. And for those of y'all just now tuning in, welcome to the show. Hit the subscribe button and the like button. All right, let's dive in. This one's going to be fascinating. Let's get his thoughts.
I saw one on Saturday with my son. Are these all drones, or is something else going on up there?
Well, Rob, first of all, thank you for having me. And that's a great question. The reality is what you just saw previously by the good general providing a public statement saying that all these are registered civilian aircraft. Look, the guest right before me, Miss Lake, said it right. The American people have a really good BS meter. And I suspect people don't buy this line of logic. Look, we all know the difference between a quadcopter and a helicopter and a Cessna. That's not what we're talking about here. And we have in one statement, the Pentagon saying we have no idea what they are, but we're pretty sure they're not foreign adversarial technology. And then as of today, literally the House of Foreign Affairs Committee chairman himself, Mr. McCall, said that he believes they're from China. And then you have the Pentagon coming out saying, well, actually, these are not our drones. And then later on, or actually even today, they could turn around and said, well, actually, we kind of know what they are, but they're still not ours and not foreign adversarial. The bottom line is that civilian drones don't fly in controlled U.S. airspace over restricted areas. They're not supposed to. We're seeing a rash of this. I have videos on my phone from Andrews Air Force Base, Langley Air Force Base. I wish the Pentagon and this administration would be consistent with their messaging, because all it's doing is turning people really away from trusting their government at a time, by the way, where trust is already at a historical low.
Okay, if aliens are here, and I think throughout your hearings, we've concluded that something is here. What are they doing? And maybe more importantly, why haven't they made contact?
Wow. Okay, let's try to unpack that. So, what are they doing if they are here? Well, they could be doing all sorts of things. As human beings, what do we do when we're on the African Serengeti? Well, we study. We fly our helicopters. We might dart a wildebeest. And then take blood samples, and we're looking at its dietary migration patterns, its health, etc. It could be simply something just as curiosity. Why do we go to the moon? Why do we go to Mars? As far as the second part of your question, that's a little more complicated. This is a topic that's been going on now in the U.S. government. Your taxpayer dollars have been paying for serious study for the last 70 years into the topic of UAP, or what was once known in the vernacular as UFOs.
Right.
This is all the while, and this is one of the reasons why I don't trust the Pentagon, because I was there the whole time. The Pentagon was telling people UFOs are silly, UAP are silly, there's nothing to see here. We're spending millions of dollars of taxpayer money with the consent of the Department of Defense to investigate none other than UFOs. And exactly what's happening here. You have a air flight safety issue. In some cases, these UAP were getting so close to combat formations, they were literally splitting the combat formation down the middle. So
Wow.
think about that for a minute. Two F-18s flying in a combat formation, and these things splitting the formation right down the middle. My concern with these drones is right now, Rob, is that you have this schizophrenic approach within the U.S. government, and they're hoping at this point anything that will stick to the wall will work. And this is why they had a private conversation with the House Intel Committee. Notice how they didn't do it publicly. They just said, we're going to have a private conversation. This is after days and days and weeks of saying, folks, we have no idea what's going on here. We don't know if they're Russian. We don't know if they're ours. We don't know if there's something else potentially.
Lou, is the narrative that these are from Iran and China, is that narrative BS?
They're not from Iran. Look, let's make it very simple here. If you have a large, as some of these have been reported being the size of an SUV, those are not average hobbyist drones. So that's a bunch of malarkey. We're talking about something very sophisticated that can carry a heavy payload, something that is being electronically powered by a large battery and has loiter capability in some cases between 5 hours and even 10 hours. That's well beyond any type of commercial drone technology that we utilize. Right now, you're lucky if a drone can last more than 15, 20 minutes before it's got to come back and recharge. And then you've got a line of sight issue. When you're trying to communicate with the drone, you're using radio frequency primarily, and radio frequencies are being limited by line of sight. So if these are moving at 100 miles or 50 miles over the horizon, you need some aerial platform, either an airplane or a satellite, to serve as a repeater. So that means infrastructure, that means people, that means resources. And that would be a huge undertaking if this was someone like Iran or China doing this.
Right. So that would lend to the theory that this is not a foreign adversary. But then there's also some evidence that it might be. Right. So there's actually, when it comes to the various theories out there, and I covered all of them in a previous show, I'll put a link to them in the show notes. There's evidence that fits into every one of them, whether we're speaking about Project Bluebeam. We're speaking about just merely hobbyists throwing these drones up there. If we're talking about the Nephilim, whatever we're talking about, there's, you know, a little bit of evidence that you could put for this theory and that theory, and really none of them sufficiently answer all of the data that we're seeing. In fact, I do see somebody in the chat say, y'all don't panic, as in the days of Noah. Don't forget the Nephilim are demon spirits also. So there's also a claim that these could be demons. For those of y'all who are not familiar, the Nephilim are these beings that are found in the book of Genesis chapter 6, where it describes the sons of God, always in the Old Testament described as the angels, going into the daughters of men and creating giants on the earth, and then they're killed in the flood a few chapters later in the book of Genesis. So some are of the opinion that what's going on is today the Nephilim are reasserting themselves. I'll cover that in another show. I mean, that's right up my alley. That's my wheelhouse, and I'm a theologian ultimately, so I will certainly cover that in more detail and explore that theory in another show. So stay tuned if you're interested in that one. So let me show you another one here. Now, this is pretty wild. It's a little bit older, but it goes to what I mentioned the other day, where I spoke of you have this Israeli officer who was really, really high up in Israel's military, and also their program investigating UAPs, UFOs, all sorts of stuff. Really, really high up. He was actually Israel's former space security chief. And he came out with this wild assertion that there are aliens and that Trump even knows about this, and Trump wanted to come out and tell everybody, but he couldn't for various reasons. And this is like one of the top guys for Israel. Again, Israel's former security space chief. And so it's pretty wild that he came out and said this a few years ago. And I think he may have passed away since then. A lot of people wrote him off because he was 80 years old by the time that he said this and retired. Others felt like, okay, well, he's spilling the beans because he really has nothing to lose at this point. Well, here is a news report that was discussing the matter. Might that be related to what's going on? I don't know. Just throwing it out as a wild theory. It's one of many options at this point. I'm open to really anything to explain. Like Luke says here, nothing is off the table at this point. I agree. If you would have asked me a month ago, I would have said some of this stuff is off the table. At this point, you know what? Nothing's off the table for me. Let's watch it together.
Aliens exist and President Trump knows about it. That's according to Israel's former space security chief. In an interview with an Israeli newspaper, he said the aliens have been waiting until today for humanity to develop and reach a stage where we will understand in general what space and spaceships are. NBC News chief global correspondent Bill Neely explains this one.
Hi, Alison. Well, this is quite a story, and it comes from the man who headed Israel's space security program for nearly 30 years. Chaim Eshed is making the extraordinary claim that the United States and Israel have been in contact with a group of aliens for years, not immigrants, but extraterrestrials. He has called them the Galactic Federation of Aliens, and he says President Trump is aware of the existence of these aliens and had been on the verge of revealing their secrets, he claims, but was asked not to do so by the Federation in order to prevent what he calls mass hysteria. Well, the retired general says the US and Israel have kept it from the public because, quotes, humanity isn't ready and the aliens don't want to reveal themselves until humanity can evolve, he says, and understand what space really is. Well, the good news is that he claims an agreement has been reached between the US government and the aliens, a contract to do experiments here. There's also, he says, a secret underground base on Mars where there are American and alien representatives.
That's quite the claim. It's somebody saying, well, why do you find the alien possibility so funny? Well, not in and of itself, right? Just the assertion that there's other, life out there aside from humans on other planets is not something that I find funny. It's more the claim that there's like a secret base in, under Mars where there's this treaty that's been going. I don't know. That's where it's okay. That's a little funny. But hey, you know what? Nothing's off the table. I'll honestly consider anything at this point, but it sounds like something that comes from a cartoon. I mean, to be frank. So yeah, that is a really outlandish assertion that I think we can laugh at, while at the same time kind of wondering, I wonder if there's some truth to it. You know, I think that's perfectly fine to do. But yeah, the possibility of aliens in and of itself, no, I don't think that's again in and of itself funny. But some of the narratives, some of the ways in which it's been pitched, I think we can laugh at. Okay, so there's a lot more here. Senator Hawley, they will not brief us. They will not level us. They won't answer questions. And then he's asked, okay, well, what do you think about aliens? Do you think that the drones could be aliens? He says anything's possible, which I agree with him. Look, anything's possible, right? So let's see what he has to say. It's pretty brief clip here, but certainly worth watching.
When we're shutting down Air Force bases, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base gets shut down for a while. When commercial airlines are interfered with, they can't do their flight patterns because of these drones. That's weird. You can't tell me the government doesn't know what's going on here. And the fact they will not brief us, they will not level us with us, they won't answer questions in public, there's something really strange that's going on.
Senator, what I think you're saying is that Rosie could be right. They could be aliens.
Anything is possible, but I tell you what worries me is the fact that these are over our military installations. And let's not ever forget that this administration allowed a Chinese spy balloon to fly across the entire continental United States, did nothing about it, and now they won't level with us about this. I think it's a big problem.
Yeah, and a lot of people have pointed that out, right? And so a lot of people just don't have a whole lot of confidence in what the government says. And I mean, most people didn't have to begin with, but even less now, especially in light of the track record here of this administration when it comes to stuff like this, as we saw with the Chinese spy balloon. But here he's saying, hey, look, nothing is off the table. And I will say, yeah, certainly. But it may, again, not be some sort of disclosure program going on. It may not be Project Bluebeam or something like that. It could be that this is a foreign adversary testing us, which would point to the fact that they're, appearing over military installations. Why would aliens do that, right? Or is this just all part of the disclosure process? I don't know. Again, nothing is off the table. All right, so here's another one. Michael Schellenberger on the White House's changing narrative and discrepancies in John Kirby's statements on drones over military bases and the FBI's investigation. Let's take a look at this one from Fox.
Last week, you had both DoD spokesperson John Kirby and Mayorkas, the head of DHS, insist emphatically that there had been no drone flyovers over U.S. military bases. Well, that night, actually on Friday night and then Saturday morning, there was a flyover of the Wright-Patterson Air Base in Ohio. And in fact, it's been widely reported. So it's curious why they said that. Yesterday, then Kirby came out and said, well, of course, we all know that there'd been these drone flyovers. He also said on Friday to Martha McCallum, Kirby said, that they were investigating these cases. And then yesterday, he said that they had closely examined 5,000 cases. Are we to be led to believe that they examined 5,000 cases? 5,000, it's actually 6,000 according to FBI, but 6,000 people were interviewed, asked where they were, what direction they were pointed in. It just strains credulity for them to say these things. It really undermines the trust. And that's why you see conspiracy theories emerging into the vacuum.
The last couple of days, though, he's been emphatic in what he's trying to relay, that he thinks they're innocuous. Here's a few mayors from New Jersey on what they think. Watch.
You can say these are small aircraft. You can say these are manned. They're not. So I think if anyone was to take away from this that the drones aren't flying, they also must believe that the border is closed. I just don't want to hear any longer that we don't know where they're coming from, because you should know that.
Over 100-something, a couple hundred mayors that are all waving a flag saying this is a big deal. This is certainly not normal. It's an abnormal amount of drones, and the sizes of them are just huge.
I want you to address that. But what Kirby told us a half hour ago, he believes it's a combination of drones airplanes and people seeing stars at night.
Well, what's most incredible is that there's no anomalies. In other words, they've eliminated all anomalies. I mean, that's astounding. I mean, there's no way that you could do that in such a short period of time. I mean, the whole thing is anomalous. The drones are over air bases. You know, we had mayors reporting 2 SUV-sized drones over his house. Another mayor said he was coming to Fox News, walked out of his house, and there was a drone hovering right in front of them. There's no question there's a lot of mistaken, identities. A lot of people are seeing things that are not drones, but you're seeing a huge number of very credible people, not even to mention our military bases have the best sensors in the world. This is why this is what they've done for 80 years, is develop the best detection technologies. So we're supposed to believe that all these military commanders, at this point, we're at like 10 or 12 military bases and sensitive sites that have reported drone flyovers for years, not just this year.
Okay, so here's a quote from the Wall Street Journal editorial board, and I think you're a good person to take this to a 30,000-foot level, to use a plane reference. The feds need to explain to Congress and the public with more specificity what is really going on, but the larger need is for a government Americans can trust.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, this is an administration, obviously, that was gaslighting us for many years about the southern border, claiming that there was nothing anomalous about the southern border. So obviously, trust has really declined. I mean, we saw a rumor go around a couple of days ago that there was a loose nuke and that's what they were searching for. It was absurd. There was no way they would have let Trump at the Army-Navy game, for example, if that were the case. And also, there's much better ways to detect. They wouldn't be sending drones at night. But that's what happens when people don't trust the government, is they start inventing really outlandish theories. That's the risk of panic.
That's a good point. So you remain unconvinced.
I think it's unexplained. I mean, I just think we don't know what it is. I mean, Trump says that they do know and they may know, but we don't know. The public doesn't know. And I'm very skeptical that they really did a proper investigation in just 3 days.
Well, I share a great deal of the skepticism, especially concerning anything that the government is telling us. Now, I was really fascinated to see George Knapp, the OG, when it comes to investigating questions of UAPs. He's actually testified or was at some of these congressional hearings and testimonies made before Congress on UFOs. Again, OG, going back, way back in the day, to Bob Lazar. I think he was the first guy to interview Bob Lazar. He comes out and offers some thoughts on the drone. He calls it Dronapalooza. So he gives his thoughts. I think it's actually helpful. So let's watch it together. Let's see what he has to say, because I've been fascinated. What are his thoughts here, among others?
Glued to the skies in Nevada and across the country because of an ongoing wave of mystery drones that have been spotted for the past few weeks. Drone-like craft have emerged each night over highly populated areas and even in restricted airspaces.
Now, most are explainable, but some have stumped both law enforcement and the military. Chief Investigator George Knapp reports that this is not the first drone swarm in recent years and likely won't be the last.
Grace Omaha, technique kid, Rocco Peralta pass ability to launch Hilo ASAP.
In July 2019, more than 100 unknown objects buzzed and swarmed around 10 U.S. Navy warships 100 miles off the Pacific coast. The objects were documented on camera, on radar, and on thermal sensors. Splash. In multiple shapes and sizes, including huge wingless orbs with no detectable propulsion system. Just drones, no biggie, the Pentagon suggested. A few years earlier, when Navy pilots on the East Coast encountered unusual objects on a daily basis in their training ranges, the debunkers called them drones or balloons or both, certainly not UFOs. In the past few years, the all-purpose term drones has replaced swamp gas and weather balloons as the military's go-to explanation for unknown objects. In what might be the most ironic of the current sightings, intrusions by so-called drones caused air traffic at Wright-Patterson Air Base to shut down this weekend. Wright-Pat is where the wreckage from the 1947 Roswell crash was reportedly stored. Nice touch, drone people.
We have no evidence at this time that the reported drone sightings pose a national security or a public safety threat or have a foreign nexus.
An assortment of government officials have tried to quell public concerns in recent weeks, but the public isn't buying it, and the mystery drones didn't get the memo either. Social media platforms are jam-packed with cell phone videos of assorted lights and odd objects seen nightly in the skies over New Jersey and many other states, including Florida, Texas, California, and Oregon. Most are likely the lights of airplanes, but some do resemble standard drones, albeit a few the size of an SUV. They do not perform like known drones. New Jersey officials have demanded briefings and say they were told the drones are not a threat, are not being flown by the U.S. government, are not being flown by foreign adversaries, and by the way, the government is unable to track them, doesn't know where they originate or where they go each morning.
It was the biggest amateur hour presentation I've ever seen about anything, okay? It was ridiculous. There were no answers. Every question that was asked by a member of the state legislature, great questions, no answers, no resolution. They don't know where the drones are coming from. They don't know who's doing it. They don't know why they're doing it, but they say there's no credible threat. It was annoying to be there.
The president-elect is among those who doubt what the public is being told.
They know where it came from and where it went. And for some reason, they don't want to comment.
That is not an airplane.
In the absence of credible information, rumors have swirled. Maybe they're from Russia or China or an Iranian mothership parked offshore. Or maybe it's a secret operation by the feds to quietly track down a dirty bomb or nuclear materials smuggled into the country by terrorists. Officials have tried to quash such rumors, but their credibility has been impaired. Just days ago, the public was told there were 0 verified drone intrusions into restricted airspace over military bases. Then, in a statement just days later from multiple agencies, including the FBI and the military, it was admitted there have been intrusions by unknown drones over 2 New Jersey military sites. Also confirmed drone intrusions over a nuclear power plant. Prior to the New Jersey outbreak, mystery drones repeatedly flew into the highly restricted airspace over 3 critical air bases in the UK. So what gives?
It's a serious deal, man. We gotta. I think it's a test. Somebody's testing us, and we're failing that test.
Now, at least 2 incidents involving incursions by mystery drones have been reported in Nevada. We're trying to track those down. Expect to have more information, hopefully, tomorrow.
Yeah, so George Knapp points out one of the things that I've noted is that, I mean, it's interesting. The government tells us initially, hey, none of this is going over restricted airspace. And yet, even prior to Kirby telling us that, we had seen instances of just that. And it's been happening for several years now, as Pop in the chat has mentioned, right around the time of Christmas for the last 3 years. So this is just wild stuff. Tim Burchett, you saw there, is concerned that this is basically the enemy testing us and we are failing the test. If that's true, okay, what's the next step? What's going to happen next? That is concerning. Look at this one. This is from Daily Mail. Startling image of mystery drone over U.S. airbase in UK. Revealed as bombshell report claims FBI has known about swarms over military sites for a year. And so I'll put a link to this one in the show notes so you can go and read about it. But now we're seeing the UK involved as well. So this is international. It's not just Jersey. It's not just Connecticut or Los Angeles or New York. International. And one others that I'm going to put in the show notes for you to read up on. Multiple drone incursions confirmed over Marine Corps base camp Pendleton, and this was released yesterday. So we're seeing more of these where they're again flying over restricted airspace, military bases, naval weapons facilities, nuclear facilities, now Camp Pendleton Marine Corps base. So this is just wild stuff. And again, it kind of lends itself to the view that this might be a foreign adversary testing our capabilities and testing our defense. And so that can't be good because, as Tim Burchett just said, it looks like we're failing because this continues to happen. Wild stuff. Well, I will keep you updated with more stuff as it comes out on the drones. Be looking for another show tomorrow where I'll give you the latest updates. Hey, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you appreciate this channel. If you like the Michael Lofton Show, you benefit from the content here, please do your part. Hit the subscribe button and the like button. All right, see you tomorrow. Hey, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the content. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, the like button, and if you want to support the channel, visit patreon.com/Reason and Theology.